Assalamu alaikum students, this is Majid Tahir, your computer science teacher. The topic that we are doing today is a very important topic for O-level computer science students. As upcoming CIEs, they are very worried about their unseen scenario based question. So today we are going to talk about tips and tricks of scenario based questions. The topic that we are doing is P2 course code 2210 and 0478 for Cambridge in IGCSE. So tips and tricks for unseen scenario questions. First thing, you have to read the instructions in the paper on first page. So whatever instructions are given, you have to read them carefully, because sometimes students are doing the paper but they are doing against the instructions. Always carefully read and follow the instructions on the first page of the paper. Second is the scenario question in P2 is an unseen question. So do not attempt or do not look at the unseen question right when you get the paper in your hand. Do not try to go back and look at what kind of scenario based question is this, and when you do that, it will eventually confuse you in the paper and can cost you your grade. So always attempt easiest questions first and save some time for the scenario based question. Candidate should write an algorithm using pseudocode or program code for the scenario based question. If you ask my advice, I will always advise you to use pseudocode and don't go for the program code. Why not? It is a possibility that you confuse something, or you make a mistake which will eventually is going to hurt you in the solution. So always try to solve the scenario based question in the pseudocode. Time slicing is very important. What do you mean by time slicing? Is that when you are in the paper of P2, you have to mark your paper accordingly and you have to give each question its due time. So it is written in the syllabus that candidates should spend at least 30 minutes in the scenario based question, but I will recommend you to spend at least 45 minutes. So try to save 15 minutes more in the paper. Your paper is 1 hour 45 minutes P2. Save time for the scenario based, because this is going to be an unseen question and you have to think in this question and develop the code. Whenever you see a scenario based question, it is an unseen question. You are going to look at the scenario first time. So use the given statement very carefully. Highlight keywords in that. I'll recommend that you take a pencil and highlight the keywords with a pencil. We will be doing a scenario based question in this video, so I will show you how to do that. So highlight the keywords like variables, arrays, or constant that are already given or that are that can be made by looking at the scenario. To effectively write the solution, declare all the values that are even given in the scenario. If program is asking that you don't need to declare the arrays or you do not need to declare this variable, you do declare that in a rough work and make it part of your solution, because this is going to help you in the paper to idealize or to visualize the solution and to solve the solution. If you try to skip that value, it will confuse you, it will keep on confusing you. Program requirements are very, very important. Always read the program requirements very carefully. See what is required in the program. Look for the conditions. What kind of conditions will be applied? What kind of loop is needed? What are the functions and procedures in the scenario? Always consider a scenario based question as if you're making an actual program that you have to run there and then. So if you are making a program, you have to declare the variables, you have to initialize the values, you have to even if it is given in the question, and even if it says that you do not need to declare it, you have to declare when you're actually working in the computer. So you should declare in your solution how this will help. It will not deduct your marks, But if you do not do that, it is a possibility that you can get confused in the paper and you miss something, or you are unable to write the effective solution. Let's go forward now. We are going to look at the scenario question of specimen paper 221002/23. The question of this paper is question number 13. So we are going to look at the scenario right now. This is a scenario that is given in your screen right now in front of you. It says, now let's suppose if I am a student and I'm sitting in a paper and I look at this scenario right now. Sometimes the statement gets confusing and it confuses the student. So what do I have to do? Being a student, I have to highlight the keywords. So I will check what keywords are there that are going to help me in solving the paper. So it says a 1D array student name. So 1D array, and I will use a pencil and I will highlight this 1D array student name. So I have a student name as an array which is one dimensional. Another array I have is two-dimensional array which is student marks. So I will highlight that. Now it says 1D array student name contains the name of the students in a class. The second says 2D array student mark contains the mark of each student and the subject. So there are two things in it. One is student and one is subject in 2D array. The position of each student's data is in two arrays the same. For example, the student in position 10 in student name and the student marks are the same. So it says that the index of student name 10 and the student marks are going to be same. So it's not an issue because our loop is going to keep it same. Anyways, it says the variable class size. Now there is another keyword, variable class size, that we know that is going to be created. Contains the number of students in the class. So the class size contains the number of students in the class, and the variable student number contains the number of subjects required. Now these are four things that I have identified that are going to be needed. The student study the same number of subjects. So all students are studying the same number of subjects. So if your subject number, for example, there are 3 subjects, means all the students are doing the 3 subjects. So student, class size, subject number, student name, and student marks. So these are the keywords that I have identified in this scenario. Now it says all student, okay, so we have done this. Now it says the array and the variables have already, now this is the line that is going to confuse you. It says the array and the variables have already been set up in the data stored. Sometimes what happens is that student focus on this thing and they think, okay, array is already stored, array is already declared, variables are already stored, so we do not need to do that. If you don't declare these already provided arrays or already provided variables, it will be very difficult to effectively write the solution and get 15 marks out of this question. So don't get confused with this line that this is already given. You have to declare it in everything in your solution. Now one more thing that we are looking at is this. It says students are awarded a grade. So there is another keyword, grade, that we have to find out based on the average marks. So another keyword that there is going to be average marks also that we have to find out. Now average marks, if the student is getting average marks 70 or more, he will get distinction. 55 or more but less than 70, then students get merit. 40 or more but less than 55, students get passed, but less than 40, students going to fail. Now we have grades for the students. So these are the grades that we have just seen, all of them, these grades, and the average marks are over here that we have already been provided. So this scenario tells us that we are going to have some if then else conditions, or a nested if condition, or a case of condition that we have to apply. Remember, whenever there is a 1D array or a 2D array, you will always use a for loop. So we have student name 1D array and student marks as 2D array. So we will use for loop in a loop within a loop. You can see how 2D arrays and how loops are used in 2D arrays in my video. I will provide the video link in the description of this video of 1D array and 2D array, so that you can see how to write 2D arrays and how to write 1D arrays. Now Let's move forward. Now this is what I've highlighted in the given scenario. Now let's move forward. Now I am in the program requirements. Now as you can see, the program requirements, I have to write down the program requirement, that what is the program requiring from me. So it says calculate the combined total marks for each student. So I have to combine total mark for each student, means that I have another variable. It is going to be an array because I have to get total marks for all the students. So student name was the array for names. Student marks are going to be array for all the for each student. So another array, calculate average marks for each student. So there is another going to be another array for average marks for each student. It says rounded to the nearest whole number, so you can take the data type as integer. Output, now it says now we are outputting now this. So one portion was to declaration, second portion was to insert the value, store the value. Now third portion was to calculate the values, fourth portion is to output in stored calculated value. So it says output for each student. We want to output name, combined total, average and grade marks. Average marks and grade awarded, grades that we have earlier identified. It also says calculate, stores and outputs the number of distinctions, how many total distinctions were there. So number of distinctions, another keyword, merits, passes and fails. So we have to, in the whole class, so we have to also calculate that how many total distinctions are there, how many total merits are there, how many total passes and how many total fails in the whole class. So this is what the program is required. So we have noted down everything over here, and this tells us that we have some case conditions or if then else conditions to identify, and some loops, which is going to be a for loop. Now I'm going to show you how to use the given statements. Like I've highlighted the keywords. The keywords that we highlighted are these keywords. We highlighted a 2D array, we highlighted a class size, we highlighted the subject number. The arrays, I already told you not to look at this and not to get confused. We highlighted grade and average marks. Now we are going to use these values in the program. So how to use these values? Now we're going to look at that. First, we are going to declare a student name, 1 to class size. Now we know that this was the program said that we do not need to declare the array, but we will declare. Why are we declaring it? Because it is going to help us in writing the effective solution. So declare keyword, student name is the name of the array, 1 is the lower bound, in class size is the upper bound of array of string, because names are going to go there, so we have string values. Then declare student marks is the 2D array, 1 to class size is one portion of the array, can be the rows, and the 1 to subjects are lower bound and upper bound. Subjects is the upper bound. So subject is number of subjects we have to also put in the variable. Array of integers, obviously this is going to be in integers. So we have to declare a class size. Initially when the program starts, it is going to ask us that how many number of students are in the class. Only then the program can work. So we have to know the class size already. Although it says that it is already declared, but because we do not have the values in the scenario, because we do not have the actual variable provided in the scenario, we will make it. And also declare subject number, that how many subjects are student taking, how many subjects are student taking, so we will also do that. We will also declare student grade. We know that each student is being given a grade. Also, grade is a distinction, merit, pass and fail, so it is going to be a string. Declared a student average, it's going to be an array, because we have average, array of integer, because average, based on average we are going to find out the grades. Key tips for the scenario question. Now there is another important thing that you are doing in a scenario based question when you are doing a scenario question, that you use a blank page at the end of the paper. So at the end of the paper, you're normally given a 1 blank page or 2 blank pages. You use that blank page for a rough draft of your pseudocode. And when you are sure that your program is done, you're done with the program, you're fine, you're you need to copy that in the main program, and then you can copy that in the main program. And if there are some mistakes and some rough work, there's no problem, you can do that in the blank page. Now, program requirements, we are going to look at the program requirements now. Now, in the program requirements, if you see that now in the program requirements, it says calculate the combined total. We've already highlighted this thing. The combined total marks for each student means that there is a array for student total for each student. There is an array for average mark, which we have already declared in the previous or previous declarations. We have declared average. Also, it says output. So we know that we have to output. We already talked about that. So there are 4 more variables that we are going to use: distinctions, merit, passes, and fails. For the whole class, we are going to count how many students and how many people are passed or failed. Again, this is very important. You use pseudocode or a program code. Try to use pseudocode, not the program code, because when you are using a program code, it says that in the program code, you have to add the comments. For example, you're using Python. There are some things that in the Python you cannot do, and you have to add the comments. For example, if there are constants to be made or there are variables to be made separately, you cannot do that in Python. So you have to give comments that this is the constant, this is a variable. Also, if there are procedures and functions, Python do not differentiate between procedures and functions, so you have to give a comment. So try not to use the program code. Try to do that in the pseudocode, because program code is also going to be in the paper. Pseudocode is also going to be in the paper. It is not in the computer, so you can just go with a pseudocode, and you do not need to write every comment for every step, and it'll save your time. So this is my suggestion. If somebody is more efficient in a programming code, he or she can use a program code. Now, so whatever we have seen earlier over here, we are going to put it together. For example, we have identified that we need a combined total for each student. So we made an array of student total, 1 to class size array of string. So this is the lower bound. Again, this is the upper bound, which class size, whatever class size is given in the question, the array will go till that class size. Then the second thing was the average marks for each student. So average, student average is also taken. There is another, for example, so also there is another array. Third was the grade that we have to identify based on the average. So student grade, it is going to be string. Now distinction, merit, pass, and fail all are integer, because we will keep on counting how many people have got the distinctions, how many people have got the merit, how many people have got pass, and how many people got fail. Now because we have to identify based on 70, 55, 40 or below 40, so we have to either apply case of statement or if then else or nested if statement. So we know that in program requirements will require us to make a selection statements. Also, whenever there are arrays involved, 1D or 2D, we always have to put the values using for loop. So in the program requirements, you should know that the program requirements is that there is going to be a for loop in the program to input the values. All these loops, conditions, and declarations carry marks. I'm doing the whole program in one go, so you can see that I have laid out the whole program. Now I'll explain you what I have done and why I have done it. So first, I have declared class size and subject as integer. Although it was given in the program, but I have declared it again in my solution because it is needed. Why it is needed? Because you will see that it will be used in the program throughout. Now I have another prompt statement for the user which says input class size in the class size. So whatever user input goes in the class size. So program is going to ask a student how many students are there in the class. They can be 10 students, they can be 20 students. So whatever class size is there, 3, 4, it will go in the class size so that it can go in the upper bound of the array. Also, number of subject has to go in the subjects because it has also to go in the upper bound of the array of subjects. Now the declarations are over here that you can see. these are the declarations that I've done. Student name, 1 to class size, array of string. This is my array of student name. Student total that I need to total for every student. So I made an array also 1 to class size. So the class size that I've used above is now being used over here. If you can see that this class size is being given over here, is now being used in the array to everywhere to set the upper bound of the array. Now the second thing, it says student total 1 to class size. So I have to find out the student total, student name, and the student total also class size. Student average 1 to class size, because each student's average is going to be identified, also integer. Student grade also 1 to class size, array of string, because grade is going to go for every student, grade is going to go in the student grade. Now this 2D array that I am looking at right now, this one, this 2D array has 1 to class size and 1 to subject. So subject, whatever you give in the subject goes in the upper bound of the columns, and whatever you give in the class size goes in the upper bound of rows. Array of integers, because number of students and number of subjects is going to be used. Now whenever you have 2D arrays, you will always have a loop within a loop. So we have a for loop and a for loop inside another for loop. So you can see that we have a loop within a loop. So this is main loop that we are looking at, and the smaller loop in the yellow color that you're looking at. So the loop starts for count is equal to 1 to class size. So 1 to class size, number of students, how many number of students you have taken, it'll go from 1 to there, and it'll ask students input student name. So whatever name that you are inputting, because the program asked you that you have to input the student name, which is going to be displayed later on with the average marks and total in the grade of the student. So student name is going to go in the student name array, and the count, because first the count is starting from 1, then 2, then 3 up till class size, number of all the students and name of the all students will go in the student array. So whatever student array, student name, for example, we have the student name, this is the index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. So whatever name you will write will go there. Ali, for example, goes there, and then next time whatever name you will keeps on adding there. Input student name, so it goes there. For index 1 to subject, now there is another array that we have, which is 2D array, which was student marks, count, and index. So the count is basically this value which goes maximum till class size. So if we have given class size of, for example, 3 or 4 students, 1, 2, 3, 4 students, so the 4 rows are going to be made, and the index is basically the subjects. So if you have given 3 subjects, so index will go 1, 2, 3. So a 2D array will automatically be created so that you can put values in it. So for each student, for Ali, for example, if Ali is on number 1, then marks of Ali 1, 2, 3 will go there. Now this is the total. Student total count, total marks is student total count plus student marks, count, and index. So first time count was 1. So in 1 you have written Ali. So this loop will repeat if you have given 3 subjects. For example, class size, let's suppose you have given 4. Let's suppose class size we have given 4 and subjects we have given 3. So student name 1 to class size, when this array is given, we will have 1D array of 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And when the 2D array is created, this one student marks 1 class size and 1 to subject, another 2D array was created. Subjects, let's suppose number of subjects we have given 3, which is we have written over here. So number of subjects that we have given 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4 are the, so 1, 2, 3, 4 are the students, and 1, 2, 3 are the subjects. So So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is name, student name array, and the second one, this is student marks array. So for example, over here input student name and student name goes to count. Now loop is starting with the count which is 1. So first time we are in 1. Let's suppose student writes Ali. Then loop comes in the second one for index 1 to subjects. So it will run up till 3 because we have selected 3. Let's suppose we have selected 3. Input subject marks. So whatever you input of index subject marks 1, it will be displayed input subject marks 1. So it will go into student marks count which is 1, this one, and index which is 1, this first one. So let's suppose I've written 22, so it goes over there. Next we'll repeat our loop back over here. So it will run up till maximum subject, it will run up till 3 times. So it will ask for the same person's second marks. Let's suppose I've written 33, it will come over here, and then loop will repeat again, and then I will, let's suppose, written 44. And then when I've done 3 times, next index will bring me out of the loop because loop has run 3 times and I'm still in the first loop. It will say student average is equal to student total. Now total is calculated over here. Total is calculated over here divided by subjects which are 3. So we will have an average. And based on that average case, I have applied a case statement. You can apply an if then else or nested if also. But I have applied in case statement to reduce or to compact the program. So case of student average count, if statement 70 or greater than equal to 70, then student grade, which was this array, will have what? It will have a distinction. So I am currently not out of the loop. I'm still for the first student. I have only filled the first student's entry. So I am still talking about Ali. So if Ali has scored distinction, it will mark distinction. I had the third array which was distinction. So the grade array, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So for 1 it'll write distinction. All right, and then next count. Next count will bring that count back. So next count will bring that count back over here to our count again. So now the count will become 2 and I will be in the second slot. So let's suppose I've written Hassan, and again the whole process will repeat. I will write down, for example, 11, 12, 13 marks of Hassan, and then second slot, it'll, according to the average, it'll count pass or fair or whatever, and then loop goes back 3rd time and it'll do that. Loop goes back 4th time, it'll do that. So it will mark the whole marks also, it will mark the whole grades also, and the name also. Name, grades and marks are stored in the separate variables. Total is stored in the separate variable. Name, grades and marks are stored in the separate arrays. Each array has the same index 1, 1, 1. So you will have no problem outputting the values. Let's move forward. So the program let's move forward. So the program will look like this in the input mode. So what you are looking at right now is the input mode. For example, this loop that I've written you after the declaration, I have given you the input, and the program output will look like this. The program output will look like this. Now, if you can see, first time when I asked student how many total number of students are there in the class, the variable was class size. This was a prompt for me that input class size, and I've written 4. So 4 goes in the class size, which is going to be our upper bound of every array. Second thing was input number of subjects. This array is going to, this 3 is going to be used in the subject, which is going to be to the second upper bound of our 2D array, which is the student marks. Now my loop is starting from this side now, this one, and it says input student name. So I'm over here right now. Input student name so my loop is starting now and it's saying input student name. So input student name, this one, I am over here right now, this one. So I have written Hassan. The Hassan is the first student name, so it goes in the first slot. Then my program comes over here. It says input, now this is the second loop if you remember. So it says input subject marks and index was initially 1, so it says input subject marks 1. I've input this marks. It says input subject marks 2 because the loop is going to run 3 times because I've given 3 subjects over here, and input subject marks 3. So I've given 3 marks over here. Then it automatically added this. It's not shown in the output because it is not happening in the output, it is happening inside the program. Average is calculated, student grade is filled, and it comes to the next loop, it coming back to the second index. It says input student name, I've given another name, and then loop runs 3 times again, and I have given 3 marks again. Then another name, loop runs 3 times again, and then another name, loop run 3 times again in that to give the total marks of that student so that I can calculate the average. So when I'm done with this input, my program will come to the output portion. Now in the output portion, if you can see, there's another loop over here for output, which is for C to class. Now for counting, I've written a variable C to maximum class size. I've output student name C, so that student name 1, 2, 3 is displayed. Total marks of that student in the student total array, again C, so 1 slot of that also. Average and student average, again C, so average also. Grade and then grade C, again grade of that student. So when all the grades and averages will be displayed in this output mode, after that loop will end and this portion comes which is total number of class distinction. Remember in this one, when I was calculating every distinction or merit, everything was, if it was distinction was added with distinction plus 1. If it was merit was added. If it was pass was added. If it was a fail was added. So I kept on adding merits, pass, fail, whatever student was getting, I kept on doing that in that variable there and then. Now it will benefit me now in the main output program. So when I am in the output portion now, over here it will show me these things, the total number of distinctions, total number of merits, total number of pass, fail, all is going to be output. So my program output will look like this. For example, I had 4 students. Hassan total marks are displayed in front of you. So Hassan's total marks are 264, average is 88, grade is distinction. Naila, another student, her total marks are 198, grade is 66, merit. Another person, Majid, his marks are 110, average is 37, grade got fail. And the 4th student was Junaid, marks 198, average 66, grade merit. So when I'm done with this displaying all the averages and all the total marks and all the grades, total number of class distinctions was 1 in the total class, merits were 2 and fail was 1. There was no pass. So the whole process is displayed in your program. This is how, now the thing that I was trying to tell you in the scenario question is that it may look like a very complex code, but it is not actually a complex code. When you'll actually work, how I worked at it, I did not look at the marking key. If you look at the marking key, your code will be different than the code that I have given. It was totally thought right there and then when I was looking at the scenario, and I did that. In the marking key, they have done in a different way. Every code will be done in a different way, but it should work and you should get full marks out of that question.